A great king lay dying and called both his sons to his side for the last time. The first son stood tall with hungry eyes already fixed on the empty throne across the room. The second son stood quietly with calm eyes fixed only on his father's fading face. The king looked at both of them for a long time before he spoke his final words. He said, "Power given to the wrong hands destroys, and power given to the right ones builds." He took the golden royal ring from his own finger and pressed it into the second son's palm. The first son said nothing, but everyone in the room felt the fury he was holding inside. The king closed his eyes, and the throne room fell into the heaviest silence it had ever known. Days passed, and the second son sat on the throne and felt the weight of everything it carried. He ruled carefully and quietly and thought more than he spoke and listened more than he commanded. But something was missing, and he could not name it. So one morning he left the palace alone. He walked through the village market in plain clothes, and nobody recognized him as the king. He walked slowly and watched everything and listened to conversations he was never meant to hear. Then at the edge of the market he saw a very old man sitting alone on a stone step. The old man was watching the market with eyes that were calm and clear and strangely knowing. The second son crouched beside him and looked at his face and felt something he could not explain. He sat down on the stone step beside the old man, and the old man did not seem surprised. They began to talk, and the second son quickly understood this was no ordinary old man. Every word the old man spoke carried the weight of someone who had seen far more than most. The second son stopped talking and simply listened, and the afternoon passed without either of them noticing. The old man spoke about kingdoms and about power and about what both of them do to a man. He said a throne makes a man tall, but it does not make him wise, and those are different things. He said the wisest rulers he had ever known were the ones who were most afraid of their own power. The second son asked him how he knew so much about kings, and the old man smiled and said nothing. As the afternoon turned golden, the second son stood and reached into his coat slowly. He took out the large golden royal ring his dying father had placed in his palm days before. He looked at it in the afternoon light for a long moment and then crouched before the old man. He held the ring out in his open palm toward the old man without saying a single word. The old man looked at the ring for a long time, and his expression was completely unreadable. Then he reached out slowly and took the ring and held it in his wrinkled fingers and turned it. He looked at the engraving on the ring, and something changed in his deeply lined face. He looked up at the second son with eyes that were no longer calm but full of something enormous. The second son went very still because the old man's eyes were suddenly different from before. The old man reached slowly into his worn robe and pulled out a small old medallion on a chain. He held it beside the ring, and the second son looked at both of them and stopped breathing. The engraving on the medallion and the engraving on the ring were exactly the same mark. The second son looked from the medallion to the ring to the old man's face and asked one question. The old man was silent for a long moment, and then he nodded once, slowly and completely. And the second son understood that the man sitting on the stone step was not who he had appeared to be. He sat back down on the step beside the old man, and neither of them spoke for a very long time. When the second son finally spoke, he asked the old man why he had never come forward before. The old man said, "I needed to know if the kingdom had become something worth returning to." He said, "I have been watching from that stone step for 3 seasons, and today was the first sign." The second son asked what sign, and the old man held up the golden ring and said, "This one." He said, "Any man who gives away his throne to a stranger on a stone step understands something real." The second son helped the old man to his feet, and they walked together toward the palace road. The guards at the gate stared as the new king led an old man in a worn robe through the doors. They walked through the palace corridors, and servants pressed against the walls in stunned silence. The first son was in the throne room and stopped completely still when he saw who had entered. The second son spoke to his brother quietly and clearly and told him everything without leaving anything out. The first son looked at the old man and at the golden ring in the old man's hand and said nothing. The very old man walked slowly toward the throne and placed the golden ring on its armrest. He turned and looked at both sons standing before him, and his calm, wise eyes moved between them. He said the ring belongs on the throne, not on a finger, because power belongs to the people, not the man. He said I did not come back to take anything, and I did not come back to give anything away. He said I came back because a kingdom without wisdom at its center always falls eventually. The throne room was completely silent after those words, and even the torches seemed to burn lower. The second son looked at the ring on the armrest and understood why his father had chosen him. Not because he was the strongest and not because he was the cleverest, but because he could give things away. And a man who can give away a throne is the only kind of man who should ever be trusted with one.